Hello one, hello all, welcome to this episode of WILI Interviews, episode number 19. Today we're taking a bit of a turn. I finally decided to spread outside the movie universe on YouTube, and I wanted to get into sports. And joining me today, a Mets fan, a fellow Mets fan, so it's not that hard to interview this guy. Climbing up pretty, 80 plus thousand subscribers?
Yeah, sitting at I think 82 last night, so on our way.
Congrats. Joining me is GiraffeNeckMarc. Thank you so much
good
for being here.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me. Sorry about yesterday, but I'm glad that we could get back on today and get it going.
Yeah, no. Thank you for being here. It's no problem at all. I'm just happy to finally talk about something other than movies and about a team I dreadfully love.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So first off, why don't you tell me a little bit about your channel? What is it that you consider and where you think your focus is heaviest?
So I would consider myself just basically a channel about Major League Baseball. Pretty much every single day I try to get a video out talking about what's going around in the league or give you my thoughts and opinions on players, teams, moves. I've been doing a lot of kind of ranking players recently, which gets people going. Pretty much I'm just trying to build a community on YouTube where people can come, enjoy baseball, talk about it with other people in the comment section, and just really attack something that YouTube's been missing, which is a baseball community.
Yeah. If you do a search for something baseball related, if it's not MLB coming up, your videos are pretty high on the return. So that's good.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I love seeing my name pop up there. That always helps me get more subscribers.
So I'm trying to be formal, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask that the name of yours, GiraffeNeckMarc, is
Yes.
Is there something to it, or is it just like I've been called Dumbo in high school?
So the name actually originated. So I started off on YouTube back in like 2013 under the name Jubilant Gamer, which was I was playing FIFA and making videos about that. And through that, I took a break when I went to college, and I started streaming. And the stream account for that got actually banned. So people in the chat were like, "Oh, you got a long neck." My roommates mooned the camera, so that'll get you banned off there real quick.
Sure.
But so people were like, "Oh man, this guy's got a long neck," because I had a lot of viewers going on. And when I came back, I wanted to keep going, so I was like, "Yeah, let's just throw Giraffe Neck on there, and people will be able to find me." And it's just something that's ever stuck. I mean, my neck's not incredibly long, but I mean, it's a little elongated.
Sure. For comedy, you have to, embrace the exaggerations, of course.
Yeah, and people always get thrown off too because Giraffe Neck. You think I'm like this tall guy? I'm 5'9". Like every time someone sees a picture of me standing next to them, we're like, "Wait, what? You're small." Like, yeah, it is.
So when I tell people that I follow both movies and sports, the popular response I get, is why. There's nothing that really benefits you when it's over. There's nothing to benefit you unless you're betting on the sports games. It doesn't really matter. Do you get stuff like that from non-sports fans?
I wouldn't say that I get like a lot of slack from people being like, "Why do you spend so much time doing this?" For the most part, everyone that's found out about what I do or how much I love baseball is like, "Oh, like good for you. That's your thing that you rock with. It's cool." I think now, especially in an age where YouTube's sort of becoming mainstream, people are realizing that you have the ability to like make money off this kind of stuff, or that this could actually be your job. So I think people are becoming less and less critical about what you do, and more like, "Oh wow, that's pretty cool. Like, let me try to find out more." So while like some of my friends maybe don't understand it, I don't think any of them have ever been like, "Man, you spend a lot of time on that." They kind of get the big plan at the end of the day.
How would you explain just general sports fandom to somebody who doesn't see a vested interest in the results?
Ooh, general sports fandom. I mean, it's almost like you're a second family. Like everybody who roots for the Mets. That's obviously the best example, just because me and you, we both love them. It's almost like everyone that roots for the Mets, you're all part of a family. You can all relate to each other. It adds like more of a group community type feeling. I mean, you go to a game, you sit next to someone, chances are you're going to end up talking to them whether or not you knew them before or you just met them today, just because you share a common interest of baseball or you share a common interest of being a Mets fan. And through that, you can make friendships, build relationships. It's just something that makes you not necessarily like feel like an outsider, kind of put you in a group of people if you have a problem with that, or if not, I mean, it's just another group to add to your collection, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I think fandom is great, and at the same time, it's also probably the worst thing about sports.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, yeah. So some of the stuff I get a kick out of is the fans themselves and just how crazy they get. There also appears to be this hierarchy when it comes to like argument and who's better than who, no matter what the standings are. It appears to be the trump card is if you're a reigning champion, that's it. If you're a reigning champion, you win all arguments. The second, I think I had the list. The second is if your team has defeated the counterpart's team.
Yeah.
If your team has, or in some cases, if the other person's team has recently lost, it doesn't even matter to the team that you're arguing with. And there's these tremendous debates. How do you think the hierarchy works? And is it more like rock, paper, scissors, where some arguments work over others?
I think rock, paper, scissors is actually a really good way to put it. I've never thought about it like that, but hearing it, I'm like, I think that kind of does make sense because at the end of the season, of course, let's take the Red Sox for example. 2018, nobody can say anything to them. They won the World Series, but now in 2019, they're struggling. They're not playing well. So to say we won in 2018, like, but we're not talking about 2018. We're talking about present time. You won in the past, congrats, but who cares? But then you have the argument of like who's in first place at the moment. It's ever changing. So I think the rock, paper, scissors analogy is pretty spot on because for each scenario, it depends what you give and what they're saying back.
Yeah. Yeah, I had this exchange with a Phillies fan recently who haven't won a title since, 2009. And they only have two in their history. The debate somehow got to the total amount of World Series rings, and both the Mets and Phillies have two.
Yeah, not great winners.
Yeah, right. And my thing was, wait, the Phillies have been around for like 3 times as long as the Mets have. Like, how is this even a discussion? It's really strange how that happens.
Anytime someone brings up the World Series rings in an argument, I'm like, but that like that's not what it's about. That's it's such a cop out in the argument. Of course, you got the Yankee fans, 27 rings. It's like, okay, but that doesn't prove anything. Like that doesn't make it a you guys win the argument type thing.
Yeah, were you alive for all 27?
I doubt it.
So, as a Met fan and a tri-state area guy, how would you explain the Mets-Yankees relationship? I'm not even talking about the teams. I'm just talking about the fans at this point. How do you explain that to somebody who's somewhere else in the country that just doesn't understand how?
So the Yankees, I'm trying to think without doing a sports analogy, but the Yankees are the older brother. They're successful. They went to Harvard. They graduated as a doctor. They're the most successful surgeon in the country. They're killing it. Amazing life. They have no problems in their life. Wife, kids, everything. And you're the younger brother who is a little smaller. He was maybe not as smart. He went to community college for a couple of years and then was like, it's not for me. School's not my thing. He works like a harder job. He's not necessarily a doctor making millions of dollars every year. He's working an hourly job or something like that. They're the grinder. Their life, they still love their life, but it's just they wish they could have more. And with the Yankees, it's like, why are you bragging about it? We get you're better. No one's saying you're not. Why you gotta rub it in? Yeah. And the Mets are just like, any chance you get to just poke buttons, just kind of push at them for their perfect life, and they get upset. It's like that's what makes it great. So it's like a older brother, younger brother type thing. The Yankees will always be better than the Mets. I have no problem saying that. It's just factual history type stuff. So anytime that the Mets have the opportunity to just get one back at the Yankees, you guys slip it in there a little bit.
Yep. Split the series this year. That's pretty important.
Yep, I'll take it. I mean, listen, the season's not looking great this year, but we went 2-2 with the Yankees. They'll make fun of me for saying it's our World Series. I'm fine with it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It's July, and we have to look forward to something. Damn it.
Yeah, we still got another 3 months left of the season.
So I've heard the Mets compared to the Browns in the NFL, and I think that's a little harsh. I don't know how you feel about that, but
it's getting there. It's getting closer and closer as the years go on. I've been a Met fan since I've been born, 96, 23 years now. And I started off pretty good. I mean, the late 90s, early 2000s, Mets were pretty good, 2000 World Series, and then we had just a complete lull. 2006 came back, and then the lull again. So it's just it's starting to get worrisome
Mm-hmm.
that it feels like every year's a disappointment now. And that kind of gets with the Cleveland Browns. It's like, you can't be worse, right? And then they do it again. And then the Mets do it again. And it's just,
Yeah.
I think it still is a little far-fetched, but we're getting close.
Yeah, the Mets have a bunch of postseason appearances sprinkled throughout that time, so that comparison's a little. I mean, the Mets do seem to have this epic fashion of finding the guy that breaks, or like just the irony in the assets they pick up is comical. I'll say that as an outsider, but I don't think it's quite Cleveland Browns just yet. And for the upcoming season, Cleveland looks quite good.
Oh yeah, they look good. They're gonna have a nice season. So that joke might start to fall away. Maybe we might want to be the Browns at that point. So.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So the Mets have had a couple of Hall of Fame players that don't have rings, and the bulk of their career were spent with the Mets. Off the bat, I'm thinking of Mike Piazza, David Wright now. What is more criminal? Who's the most criminal Met player to not have a ring?
It's tough because Piazza's like my guy. That was, I wore number 31 when I was playing baseball. I wanted to be a catcher. I swung like him. I was him for Halloween for like 5 years. So he's always my favorite player of all time. But I think it's more criminal that David Wright doesn't have one, especially making it to the 2015 World Series. The fact that he should still be playing, he should still be our third baseman, he should still be healthy, he should still be an all-star, and his career was cut short due to injury. Mm-hmm. It's just a whole culmination of his career with the Mets. It was so Met-like. I don't know, but that they start off great, and then it just gets lower and lower, and it ends because he can't play anymore, not because the time's up and he gets to go out on a high note. I mean, the guy's career ended in a ceremonial last game, and he couldn't even get a hit then. Yeah. It was like, everyone was begging for him to. Yeah. So I think David Wright will always go down as the number 2 Met, kind of, Tom Seaver obviously being number 1, and then David Wright's number 2, and it's a shame that he could never get a World Series with us, because I think he would have really appreciated it more than a lot of players too.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, that the Mets are quite famous for their pitching. Considering the arms that the Mets have had over the course of history, same question regarding pitchers. What of the Met pitchers? Granted, we haven't had long stays like a David Wright, but we've had some good arms come through Queens. So what of the Met arms? Which would be if we end up missing out on a ring with DeGrom? I think that would be pretty. Yeah,
DeGrom would be a rough one.
Yeah, would that be it for you, or?
I think DeGrom would be. I think back to the early 2000s. We had some guys, but nobody really stuck out as being like the Met or a Met, for their career, in my opinion. So it's tough to pick one of those guys there. Even in 2006 when we were doing well, Pedro was helping us out. We had Oliver Perez and guys. So not even guys that I'd really care at this point if the Mets did it with them. So I think probably DeGrom. Harvey was kind of that guy too. I thought Harvey was going to be our guy, and then the injuries obviously really plagued that, and the litany of excuses and errors that he made in judgment as a player. I think DeGrom would probably be my choice right now.
Yeah, Harvey is kind of a painful one too, because right up until you think about the 2015 World Series, right up until the end there, he was doing it.
I was at the World Series game, all the World Series games at Citi Field, and we were watching, and we're like, they better send him back out. This is his game right here. We love that he was ready. He fought Terry to go out there, and then it just fell apart in classic Mets fashion, and that was it. The Dark Night, it was over. It just was never the same again.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to make sure I word this properly, because it's quite a long one. So hockey is my first love. I'm a big New York Ranger fan. I barely remember them winning the Cup in '94. They won a couple of series after that in '95, '96, and made the conference final in '97. But '94 they won the Cup. But for my money, the stretch they went on a couple of years back from 2012 to 2017 is I value that more. They made 3 conference finals. They won a series almost every year in that stretch, and I I don't know. I have fonder memories of that little package rather than them going all the way and winning a championship.
Yeah.
So I guess the way I ask this question to you is, would you rather be having hindsight and foresight, would you rather be a fan of a team like a 2005 White Sox where, they won the title and that's kind of it, or something like the Los Angeles Dodgers where, they're making it pretty, they're not winning a title, but they're making it pretty far on a consistent basis. As a fan, what would you prefer to see?
That's tough because for me, the 23 years I've been alive, I've never seen a professional sports championship in any sport. So Mets, losers. Jets and Redskins, losers. Knicks, losers. So it's like I'm itching for one. So I think I'm leaning towards just taking one and being irrelevant again. But also, like if you take the Dodgers case, they're going to get one at some point. They've had so much success. Yeah. They have so much success. It's only a matter of time. I think so tough. It's so tough because I would love it more than anything to have the Mets win the World Series. But I think you probably take the sustained success for a long time over one and being irrelevant, just because I think you get to enjoy it longer. The one and being irrelevant with the White Sox, they got it in 2005, but I don't think White Sox fans even really got to enjoy it because it was just that was it. Like they haven't really been relevant since then.
Right,
so
right.
I would love to have the feeling of we have the chance to win it every year rather than we won it one year and then we're done for the rest of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the big things that comes up about the Mets, especially when talking about their last championship, the '86 team, was that 80s team, from the mid '80s through even 1990, those Met teams were good. Yeah. And if you dropped those '80s teams into the current format of baseball, they would have been a playoff team, I think, from '84 or '85 right on through to the end of the '80s.
Yeah.
I don't know how familiar you are with those teams being before you were born. Which non-86, '88 team do you think would have done the most damage under the current MLB format?
From the '80s or just in general?
We could start with the '80s, but in general, if you have a piggyback to that.
Well, the '80s in general, besides the '86 and '88 teams, not too familiar with.
Okay.
But I think the team that really could have done the most for the Mets, 2007, the year that we choked. That team was, because 2006 was a special team. We should have been there. The Cardinals outplayed us. But that 2007 team got better. We got better players. Carlos Delgado was clicking. Our pitching was clicking. We had the relievers now. It was a complete team. And then to just have first place just taken from us, and especially because we missed out on the wild card, I believe, too, we would have been a second wild card team now. And it was just, I think if we got to the playoffs that year, that was the team to win the World Series because they took the weaknesses of the 2006 team, improved them, and they just didn't get the results.
Yeah. It's funny. Oliver Perez pitched Game 7 of the NLCS, and he had no business pitching that. I mean, hats off to him. He really pitched his heart out. But
he didn't pitch too poorly, to be honest, considering what we've seen from him.
Right, they were just so grinded down with injuries at that point. So I agree with you. If in a different, that 2016 was very good. It's just they got very hurt.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Jose Valentin playing second base. I mean, the dude had a fantastic year, but he can't be your second baseman on a World Series team. He was like 35. Yeah. He's a utility player. So,
what would you say the best part of being a sports fan is?
I think it's like just in celebrating the victories and even the downside, like just the roller coaster of emotions that you get throughout a season, even though you have absolutely no impact on what happens on the field. It's still amazing to be able to celebrate. Like, I mean, 2015 is obviously the most recent for me, and just that playoff ride, that whole season was just so incredible to live through. Like, that's something I'll be able to tell my kids. Or I went to the University of South Carolina, and we made it to the Final Four in 2016 or 17. I can't remember exactly what year. As a basketball team, as whatever it was, a 10 seed, and that's just the extremely high emotions and the memories that I have with that time are something that I'll never forget, and it all coincides to my sports team being successful.
What is the best part of covering baseball on YouTube?
I think the best part of covering baseball on YouTube, and I think I alluded to it earlier while we were talking off camera, is kind of building the community. I love now that there's a group of people every day that, I love that they watch my videos, but just in general, that they come to a video, they have someone that can talk baseball. I've seen people make friendships in my comment section based off conversation about baseball, and it makes me feel good that I was able to do that. Baseball is considered a sport that's on the decline, and as someone who loves the sport, that makes me sad. So I'm trying to think of any way possible to help people fall in love with the sport like I have. And even if, it's one or two people, I feel like that's something that I'm happy to accomplish. So I think being able to do that, or YouTube being the place that allows me to do that's something that I really do like.
If you had to sell somebody on why they need to start watching baseball and what's great about it, what would be your selling points?
I think my selling point with baseball is that it's a very advanced game. So football, they have the play calling, but it's kind of hard to understand the play calling in the sense no one can read a formation unless you play the game. At the end of the day, it's about scoring. But with baseball, there's a lot of intricacies that if you spend a couple more minutes, you'll understand it. And then when you watch the game, it doesn't feel slow. You'll be like, oh, the game's over? Like that. Boom. It's not. It does. Once you start to understand a little bit more, the pace of the game does pick up. And it's something that, whether you're 5 years old or 80 years old, you can enjoy it almost at the same level. It's an experience. It's a lifestyle almost. So I think, for someone who likes baseball, if I was trying to convince someone to like baseball, I'd say if you're interested in having something that you'll be able to enjoy for the entirety of your life, I think baseball is a good sport to go to.
It's funny. Baseball is the one major sport that doesn't have an element of time.
Yep.
Yet I think it leans really heavily on tension.
Yeah.
How do you think that plays out? Like how is it that time isn't a factor, but there's still this immense tension while watching baseball?
Yeah. I mean, whenever I think of like the tension in baseball, bottom of the nine, 2 outs, bases loaded, tying run at the plate, whatever it is, I feel like the only way to really kind of explain that to someone who doesn't get it would be they have to experience it themselves. Even watching a video on YouTube, I know one of the ones that I watch a lot is the Piazza home run after the September 11th stuff, and like that gives me goosebumps. Like it just sends chills on my body. Or you get Barry Bonds hitting, breaking the record. Just the sheer stadium just screaming, the crowd going wild. It's something that I think you can really understand the passion and the love for the sport that people have with it. And if you're someone who doesn't necessarily get that, you could be sitting and watching at home, and I think that would get you to jump out of your seat and, cheer as well. And that, I feel like, is the biggest way almost to convince someone that, while there's not a lot of time, it still is important every single second of the game.
Yeah. There is also that, hey, you never know element too, because you can watch a basketball game and one team's up by 30 with 2 minutes to go, and it's over. It's
over. Yeah.
Yeah. Baseball, listen, they've got to get those last 3 outs. They could score 30 runs. It's a little far fetched, but it could still happen. So
yeah, I mean, you go to the Cubs World Series a couple years ago. That Game 7 might be one of the best baseball games I've ever watched, and it involved two teams that I couldn't care less about. So, like, I remember I was watching with my roommate, and I was screaming. He's like, "What's happening?" He comes out, sits. My other roommate comes out and sits, and we're watching. We're like, "This is the greatest game we've ever seen." And these are like two of my roommates who, they like baseball, but it's not important to them like it is to me. And it got them to sit down and watch it. It's just, it really can. Anything can happen in the sport. It's crazy.
So I don't know if you get the, I would assume you do, but for my end of things on the movie community in YouTube, people tend to ask me questions as if I'm some sort of authority figure or expert. I'm assuming you would get the same thing. Where do you think that comes from, and how valid are we to be answering stuff like that?
So I think the reason why people put a lot of trust in me or you for movies or sports, respectively, is due to a couple different reasons. One, I think the way that we present ourselves and the way that we speak. I think if you're someone that's well-spoken and someone that doesn't act kind of like a clown. I mean, I like to have fun here and there, but the way that you go about yourself in your videos or whatever it be, people kind of, you give people a feeling that you do understand what you're talking about. And for me, while, I feel like I do know quite a bit about baseball, I'm obviously not the most knowledgeable person. There's a lot of weaknesses in my knowledge of the game. But I think that the way that I, show myself to people on YouTube, the way that I act allows for people to think or, even agree that I do have a fair knowledge of the game. Do I think that's warranted? Maybe, maybe not. But also with something like sports or movies, what makes them great is that they are opinionated. You can't go to school and you don't necessarily learn more about sports. Or movies, I know film directing, that's a little bit different. But, someone being able to dissect a film or the plot of a movie, that's not necessarily something you can go and learn and have something that is, quantifiable. It's up to people's opinions.
Yeah, yes and no, but sports, it's a little bit more objective. I mean, film is subjective, but sports, it's math, it's numbers. Listen, if you're the best, if you're 10-0, you're undefeated. It's the numbers kind of speak for themselves. And granted, that the Patriots from what was it, 07 kind of. Are the exception to that rule, but there's a little bit more validity in sports, I would say, than absolutely than movies, because you do have numbers to back it up at least. So, with that being said, what are some of the worst elements of being? I'll say just a YouTuber in general, not even just a sports YouTuber.
So I think a lot of people don't realize the insane amount of work we put in. You might see a 10 or 15 minute video from me every single day, but you don't realize, the 6 hours that I looked up researching what I was talking about, or you don't see the hour and a half I spent making the thumbnail, the hour and a half editing, the 2 hours it actually took to record to get down to 15 minutes. So it's really not just, sit down for an hour and, hey, here we go, there's my video. So sometimes I feel, that gets taken for granted a little bit. Something in particular is, being called to sell out, though. You put an advertisement in your video and people be like, well, you're selling out. I'll be like, I'm making free content. So, here and there, I tend not to get too bothered by comments. Typically, comments that bother me are just like, that's so stupid. How could you say that? But it's like, for me, like, if someone like with your face being on camera, like, oh, you're ugly. I'm like, I don't really care what you think. Like, who cares? Not important to me. So
irrelevant, completely irrelevant.
Irrelevant. I'm not trying to get your stamp of approval for my looks.
I'm not a beauty channel. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, the worst thing about being a YouTuber, I think it's just sometimes you have to put your channel ahead of other things. So for me, I still upload on Saturday. I still upload on Sunday. I may not be able to go do something on the weekend with my friends because it's like I got to go get a video out in order to continue to push my channel forward to where I want it to be. So you make some sacrifices here and there. Obviously, it's not the standard 9-to-5 job where you go into work every single day, do the same thing over and over again. I love what I do, but there is some sacrifice that I think people don't realize that you do make.
Mm-hmm. Are there elements, knowing the sacrifices that go into it, do you ever get, I don't want to say jealous, I don't want to say envious, but knowing the work that goes into stuff, do you ever look at another channel, not even from the same community, and just objectively looking at what they're doing, knowing that they're either cutting corners or they're just not putting the same work in, and perhaps they're succeeding a bit more? Does that get under your skin? Well, is it difficult to sit through something like that when you know that, man, you could have edited here and get a better camera?
There's a few times where there's been channels that I've watched and they don't necessarily even deal with baseball, just YouTube in general, where stuff they do is infuriating. Mm-hmm. It is a bit annoying to see, and that they can kind of get away with it because, on other levels or in other communities, that wouldn't cut it. Mm-hmm. But I don't use it as a thing that necessarily gets under my skin. I almost use it as a bit of a motivating tool. There's been some comments made about myself or people that I'm friends with, and I'm always like, hey, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. That kind of thing. I'm going to show you that I can do it this way, or I'll be able to hit these milestones that you say you'll never reach. Mm-hmm. So while, yes, there are things on YouTube that definitely get a little bit annoying, it doesn't really ever get to me enough where it's making a difference in my day.
So who are some of it, again, not specifically sports, who are some of the YouTube channels that perhaps have inspired you to go ahead and try doing it? And
so the first ever YouTube channel I watched was this British YouTuber who did FIFA stuff at the time, because like I said, I started there. His name was KSI. He's obviously now turned into a rapper and does all these other different things now. But he was the original one that really got me going into like, hey, maybe I could do this kind of stuff. And then some other channels that really inspire me, like obviously you watch, a Casey Neistat. Just the quality of his videos, the way that he's able to tell a story is something that I would love to be able to do. It's never going to happen because he's obviously got a gift and a talent that just not everybody has. But when I go to a baseball game or something, I try to at least break down, okay, here's the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end, here's what I'm trying to tell through this video of going to the game. He's one of the guys I like a lot. A lot of the commentary community, so like H3, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
Sure.
Big fan of them.
Sure.
So while I'm not necessarily able to emulate the kind of content that they make, because baseball is a lot different than comedy or vlogging or telling a story, a lot of the things that they do, or a lot of the conversations that they have, I listen to, and it is being able to be applied to my channel, whether it's, how they work on their titles, how they work on their thumbnails, how they try to work on their community. Regardless of what the topic is, you're able to still learn stuff from them.
So in the movie community, some hurdles we have are copyrights.
Yes.
You can only use so much footage. Fair use is a really interesting thing that
Yeah.
the way you're already answering probably says a lot to me. To be a YouTuber with visual aids, how difficult is it to include? I don't know the sports end. Are you allowed to use clips, pictures? Like, is there at all any bit of give?
So there's a bit of a formula that I use to get around it, because technically I do not own the rights to any of the clips of Major League Baseball that are in my videos, which that's completely fine, and they have the right to hit it with a copyright strike at any moment, or take the revenue from the video, because hey, we own that stuff. So there's ways around it that I've figured out that it gets flagged less and less, and I'll continue to use those. I mean, probably you've noticed if you've seen my videos, everything looks a little zoomed in. That's one of the ways to get around it. Cut out a couple corners here and there.
It's just a friendly piece of advice in the film world. If you just cut a couple of frames and unnoticeable amount of frames, it seems to work.
So there's definitely ways around it. It can be frustrating, but also I understand a lot of companies pay millions upon millions of dollars to have the exclusive right to be able to broadcast these games. So I understand why, they sometimes come after videos, but it's not something that, I let it get to me.
So I ask this of anybody on this interview series, because the WILI from WILIscredia stands for Will I Like It. If somebody were to bump into you on the street, or if you were trying to sell your channel, who would you say, you would like GiraffeNeckMarc? Who would you suggest your channel to?
I think if you're someone who likes baseball, who's wanting more besides what you see on MLB Network or ESPN, you want a little bit of a more raw take on things, not necessarily worried about, saying everything properly or saying what's supposed to be right, but more of an opinion-based commentary on the game. I think my channel would be the place for you, because I don't hold any punches. I'll say what I want, when I want it, how I want it. I mean, if Yankee fans know, I've made 2 or 3 videos just making fun of Yankee fans and talking about how they get angry over things. So while I like to keep, some things professional so that I do have some credibility when it comes to, argument's sake or being able to say who's good, who's not, I still like to have my fun. And if you want baseball to be a little bit more fun, I think my channel is the place to be. It's not, business. It's not corporate. I have nobody to appease. It's what I want to upload.
And the last question, which is about a personal touch. I'll start with the negative first, and we can end on a high. Some of your least favorite or your most devastating memories in sports, if you don't mind.
2006 is one of the first that comes up, when we lost in the NLCS to the Cardinals. Of course, Beltran, the classic Adam Wainwright curveball. I was 10 years old at the time, and that's one of the first times I really remember just absolutely losing it, like crying, being angry, throwing things like that. I had a fit. That one was rough because, we should have been the World Series champions, and I still believe we should have. But that was rough.
Yeah, Detroit wouldn't have been a problem.
Detroit wouldn't have been a problem. The Cardinals shouldn't have been a problem. They were 500 making the playoffs, whatever it was. So they shouldn't have been a problem either. So that one was tough. 2007, 2008, choking first place with like a month left to go. Historic chokes both years. That one was really tough. to swallow as well. And that was probably, right when I was really, I loved the baseball, but that's when it got to the next level for me and became more of a hobby and into a love. So those were really tough. 2000 World Series was tough too, but I was a little bit too young to really remember everything. I just know losing to the Yankees. I remember we had a chance to win almost every single game, and we still blew it because that's what the Mets do. So there's that. I think really though the mid 2000s was a rough period to be a Met fan, especially for me being so young, and that was tough.
Yeah. The 2000 World Series. I remember speaking to a friend of mine at the time, saying, "Well, the year before they swept." What was it, the Braves or Padres? I'm forgetting which year it was.
I think
they swept somebody in '99, and I was like, well, the Mets would have.
Was '99 when
it was the Braves.
Todd Pratt hit the home run, right?
So the Yankees swept the Braves, and I'm like, man, the Mets would have at least won one. And sure enough, the next year, all my Yankee fans are like, what happened? I'm like, well, I told you they would have won at least one.
Yep. Yeah, we got that one, and that was it.
So and some of your favorite sports memories.
Favorite sports memories, obviously 2015 World Series. That run was unbelievable. From being so incredibly low before the trade deadline, where we blew that game to the Padres and we were just losing games, and then the whole Wilmer Flores crying on the field fiasco. We almost got Carlos Gomez getting rid of Zach Wheeler, and then to getting Cespedes, who was our savior. He came and something happened, something changed, and we rose up and dominated the rest of the year, beating the Nationals, embarrassing them. That was really something special. And then the run, the Dodgers, the Utley slide, and then coming back and beating the Dodgers and sticking it to them. Mm-hmm. And that was great. And then just destroying the Cubs, 4-game sweep, not even close. Murphy going crazy. I mean, that's just one of the more magical moments in sports, I think, in baseball in quite some time. And then, of course, losing. But I still don't have a bad memory with that. I still, I think that's something I'll always be happy that I was able to experience, especially in person. Mm-hmm. And just hope I don't have to experience again. I hope we start seeing some winning. But I think that's probably one of my favorite moments ever as a sports fan.
That's awesome. We said it beforehand, but the Johan no-hitter, I was assuming would have been up there.
Johan's definitely up there too. The weird thing for me was I was actually playing baseball at the time, and we finished our game, and my dad's like, no-hitter. Like, we had a 40-minute drive home. We're like, we need to get home in time to see the last out. It's going to happen. We get home, we see the last out, it happens, and then it's like, a huge weight's lifted off the shoulder now. Like, we don't have to hear it every single time. Well, they get their first one. And it couldn't have happened to a better guy in Johan. Even though he's not necessarily a Met for his entire career, he felt like one. And for that to be kind of the highlight of his career, and then we kind of course, killed his arm after that. That no-hitter, it might have been great. It might have been a high, but it definitely hurt his career for the rest of the time. But I that's a great experience, or moment as well.
What would your advice be to a fan of a team that has, it's been a while since they've won a championship? Where, I mean, if you're 30, there's a lot of teams out there that you haven't,
Dodgers too.
Right, you haven't been alive to see them win something. What would be your advice, just as a fan, like how to appreciate whatever there is to appreciate?
I think my biggest thing is just don't take it too seriously. Like, I live and die with the Mets, but at the end of the day, we lose a game, we don't make the playoffs, I'm going to be upset, but life goes on. Take it as it's entertainment at the end of the day. Enjoy it while you can. Mm-hmm. I think, losing, there's no reason to be happy to lose, but there's also no reason to let that ruin your day. And it almost makes winning even that much more special, because when you do win, you really enjoy it then. It'll be even more worth it because you waited all that time. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you get to see the walk-off home run. The stadium pops off. You get to pop off a bit because it's finally all over. So I think just hang in there. Don't take it too seriously. And then when you win, enjoy it. Just enjoy the highs and don't get too down over the lows.
I guess the counter to that is, can there be too much of a good thing?
Definitely can be too much of a good thing, just because you set yourself up for the letdown when it all inevitably does come crashing down. But I haven't gotten there yet, so I'm not worried about it.
Man, I would hate to be a Patriots fan right now.
Yeah, right. I know, right? Winning Super Bowls every year or making it there,
and there every time. Yeah,
I'd hate to be upset over losing in the Super Bowl every year. Right? It's tough.
Well, once again, thank you for taking part in this. If you just want to let my viewers know what you have coming up on your channel in the upcoming future.
Yeah, sure. So obviously in the upcoming weeks, going to be doing a lot of All-Star Game coverage as it does happen next week. Going to be doing a lot more rankings. Going to be talking about a mid-season review, where teams are standing right now, what they need to do to improve. A lot of trade deadline stuff, and then I'm going to give you my updated midseason predictions because my New York Mets, New York Yankees World Series will not be happening. So
You gotta believe.
You gotta believe, but also, I gotta be a little more realistic this time than I was this offseason. That was too much of a good thing. I was feeling too good. I got a little confident, and it's kicking me in the butt.
Well, that Jared Lowry, once he comes, man, it's he's gonna turn it around for us.
If he ever does, I'm starting to doubt it, honestly. But yeah, a lot of good baseball stuff coming up. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be exciting. An exciting summer. I can't wait to see what. I don't even know what I got in store sometimes. So
yeah. Real quick, what is the Mets record come October?
So right now we're what? 9 games under 500.
Yeah, a lot under 500. Do they win 70?
I think they win 70 without a doubt. I think they win 70. I'm stuck between the 75 and 82 spot right now.
Really, 500?
I'm stuck between that because, excuse me. I think if we get rid of Mickey Callaway, the team makes a turnaround. I think if he stays around, we continue to have these streaks and then a low. Mm-hmm. A streak and then a low. I don't know if you've noticed, but we start off the year great every year with Mickey Callaway.
And then Junes are terrible.
And then May and June comes around and we become a team that has a .250 winning percentage like the Baltimore Orioles. And then we finished the year great last year. We finished on a high. So I think if we keep with him, it's still going to be that roller coaster peaks and valleys. I think we need a little more consistency. So it depends what the Mets want to do. Do we want to fire a manager and pay another? Probably not. The Wilpons don't like to spend money like that. So it really, I think it depends on who's leading them. But I think right between that 75 and 82 mark, I'm not going to get too, wishful and think, we're going to turn it around completely. But I think we can be competitive still.
I think 500 is generous at this point. I don't know what they're doing.
It's just they're such a mess with the bullpen and the offense. The offense has been great. Go figure. That's always the biggest issue with the Mets the last 3 or 4. And can we score runs? No. DeGrom was, proof of that last year. We finally start scoring runs, and the pitching's like, that's not enough now.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
The bullpen's like, I don't know what I'm doing. You want the ball? I don't want the ball.
Yeah, no, nobody wants it. Every night it's like, who's gonna screw it up? I got it, coach. All right, cool, great, thanks.
So Mark covers much more than the Mets. We've been talking mostly Mets because I'm a bit of a fanboy here. So John in the chat says, the Mets are awesome. Most players get busted for steroids, but they get on crack. Daryl, and Dr. K. That's a bit of Philadelphia fandom rearing its ugly head. Yes.
Yeah, the Phillies know a little bit something about being a little off too. So
yeah. We had Dykstra before he got big there, John. So thank you for the super chat. But again, he covers much more than the Mets, even though we mostly focused on them. So if you want baseball content on YouTube, Mark is certainly it. I mean, you do a search, you're going to find it.
Yeah, there's a good chance you'll see my name.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of guys right now on YouTube that are doing baseball content. It's about me and probably about 5 other guys that are consistently doing it.
And they're all different. You guys are all really different. Like John
we're all
Media
different.
Is something I get suggested where it's just he reads mouths.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
And a Yankee fan, and I like him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, like the content and the work that he does is far different than mine.
Yep.
His is more the comedic side. His is more of really breaking down plays, and he does a great job at it. And then you've got me, who's more of the giving my opinions on players, teams. There's a bunch of other guys who write stories, who write these big 20-minute videos that are a lot of research based, and everybody does a great job.
Yeah. So just the channel name once again is GiraffeNeckMarc. His Twitter handle is right above his head in the box. His link is down below. And once again, for the last time, thank you, Mark, for taking part in this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a day, everybody.